Dear all, a very warm welcome to the Havells Present Spotlight, a series organized by Realty Plus Masterclass. Friends, Spotlight is a monthly webinar series exploring the dynamics of lighting, featuring nationally and internationally acclaimed lighting consultants, designers, and experts who will share their knowledge and expertise on the future trends in the world of lighting. I'm Sapna Srivastava, editor of Realty Plus magazine, and let's begin with a brief introduction of Realty Plus. Friends, Realty Plus magazine is part of Exchange for Media and VW Business World Group. The monthly publication is the real estate vertical of the group and was created to cater to the needs of the real estate businesses. For the past 16 years, Realty Plus has been at the forefront of news and stories influencing the world of real estate. It was also recognized as the best real estate magazine by National Real Estate Development Council, NAREDCO, and is now available both in print and digital edition. Apart from our monthly magazine, the Realty Plus series of collector's edition coffee table books are premium editions launched once in a year, spotlighting prominent personalities, products, and brands of the real estate industry. A recent one is Super CXO's India's Top 100 Realty Influencers coffee table book featuring Indian Realty's dynamic Super CXOs who are transforming the sector through their leadership and vision. Moving on from the publications, Realty Plus Conclave and Excellence Awards virtual series features eminent speakers, engaging discussions, and lively virtual award ceremonies felicitating the top performers in Indian real estate, prop tech, co-working, and building products segments. Realty Plus also produces various online products and events under its Realty Plus Digital Connect initiative. Under the umbrella Realty Plus Digital Connect, we have Realty Plus Masterclass webinars such as the one today, featuring subject matter experts and industry leaders in an insightful and informative conversation on current and relevant topics. We also have the Realty Plus Real Talk series that features video interviews with influential leaders from varied segments of real estate to share their honest views and opinions and real facts and figures for the benefit of all the stakeholders of the industry. Not to be missed, every morning is a Realty Plus e-newsletter that goes out every day with the latest news, views, and opinions from across realty sector of India and the world. We are also very strong on the social media platforms, and that is how we stay connected with our readers, peers, and partners and promote our products. So this was a brief snippet of what Realty Plus does and what are its initiatives. To know us better, do get in touch with Ms. Tripti Kedia, publisher and business head, Realty Plus. So that was what Realty Plus is all about. And now, moving on to the program of the day, let me welcome Mr. Parag Bhatnagar, Strategic Business Unit Head and Executive Vice President, Havells India Limited. Mr. Parag Bhatnagar, let me give a brief profile of Mr. Parag Bhatnagar. He has over 25 years of experience across reputed FMCG and FMEG companies, and he has launched many new categories and turned around challenging businesses to profitable growth path. He has been leading the national level businesses, sales and marketing teams and contributed as the core member of the management teams, both B2B and B2C domains during stint with Philips Electronics, Godrej, Jubilant, and now at Havells. His focus areas are strategic thinking, leveraging power of team working, and business analytics and people development. I would now request Mr. Parag Bhatnagar to please take over and give his views on what this Spotlight series is all about. Mr. Bhatnagar, over to you.
A very good evening to everyone. Thank you so much, Sapna, for giving me this opportunity. See, this Spotlight is a very important initiative by Havells. See, what had happened, let me just explain it a bit. What had happened in last 3 to 5 years, the scope of lighting has changed significantly. Earlier, if you look at, I'll take a help of an example, and it has changed in every space, workspace, public spaces, and home. So I'll take an example of workspace. Earlier, what used to happen is that if you have right kind of a lux level on a particular desk where somebody is working, and the light ensures that there is a comfort in working, that used to be called as a good lighting solutions. But if you look at now, the role of lighting has expanded significantly. Today, if you see, lighting can do in office space, lighting can help in increasing employee productivity. It can help in office space optimization. And also, we all are facing this pandemic today, and lighting in many ways can help in terms of providing safe space for people. And similarly, if you look at safe environment for people, lighting can also add on to that. So there are so many wonderful possibilities now are possible through lighting. Also, if you look at if you get into more indoor space, like even at home, earlier lighting was used generally for illumination and general lighting. Today, role of lighting is expanded into, it can help in de-stressing. It can improve quality of sleep. It can help children in concentrating better on studies. So lighting can overall impact the well-being of human being now. So this is a very, very expanded role of lighting, and which is a great news, which is very wonderful as well. But at the same time, there is a challenge here. The challenge basically is that these technologies, the technologies that are available to deliver this benefit out of lighting are actually are not very popular as of now. A lot of people are not either aware or not either have experienced the benefit of lighting fully. So what had happened, because of that, the uses of technologies like human-centric light and all is not very frequent as of now. So this was the thought in our mind, and we thought that we should create a platform where all knowledgeable people who understand lighting, who has the capability also and willingness to help in accelerating the use of such technologies in lighting should come together on this platform of Spotlight and help Havells accelerating the use of these technologies. That is the reason why we created Spotlight, and I'm sure with your help, Sapna will be able to take this forward, and will make sure that the customers are getting the benefit of these technologies, and we will be able to unlock the values that lighting can offer in future world will happen. So over to you, Sapna. Thank you.
That's correct, Mr. Bhatnagar. Although now there is much more awareness about lighting, but there are so many aspects of lighting that we still are not aware, or we still need to know. And that is what this entire Spotlight series is all about, to know the various facets of artificial lighting and how it's impacting our lives nowadays. So, Mr. Bhatnagar, let's bring on the stage the star of the day. Should we do that?
Yeah.
So we have her right here with us, Ms. Florence Lam. She is an Arup fellow and is leading the firm's global lighting design practice. So let me give a brief profile of Ms. Florence Lam. She is a multi-award winning lighting designer with over 15 international and national awards to her name, including Lighting Designer of the Year in 2013. Her particular expertise in daylight, visual perception, and holistic lighting approach plays a key role in many of her projects, from museums to airports, bridges to city precincts all over the world. Florence has a strong interest in visual light art as a lighting designer and has collaborated with a number of artists and architects on public realm projects, including Anish Kapoor's ArcelorMittal's Orbit in London and the world's largest timepiece in Zurich. Her projects of significance include the British Museum World Conservation Centre in London, the Acropolis in Athens, National Sculpture Center in Dallas, Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto, California Academy of Science in San Francisco, Abu Dhabi International Airport, Midfield Terminal, the Stonecutters Bridge, and the Typhoon Center of Heritage and Arts in Hong Kong, to name just a few. Florence is also a visiting professor of lighting design and engineering at the Bartlett UCL Institute of Environmental Design and Engineering. Florence Lam, a very warm welcome to you. Thanks for sharing your time and being here. Over to you now.
Thank you, Sapna. I'll probably just share my screen to start the presentation. Right, I think probably the best is to start with a definition of what we mean by human health. So human health is defined not only the physical state of individuals, but rather is a state of complete physical, physiological, but also social well-being. So when we talk about well-being, we need to sort of cover quite a range. And then in physics, light is a wonderful piece of scientific phenomenon that is with its particle and wave duality. Shadows result with light behavior, behaving like particles and get obstructed, but also sometimes behave like waves. And that's when you see, when you pass light through a prism, you see a rainbow of colors. But light, when it enters our eye, magical things happen in our brain. The gap between knowing what light is in science to the everyday perception of our physical surroundings and to how light morphs into an emotional framework of our daily life is both complex and constantly changing. And light also plays a key role in our culture and humanity. Light has always acted as an emotive means connecting to the human subconsciousness to relate memories and experiences. And that is beyond what just general human reasoning or understanding goes. It provides a context similar to that of a scene in a play or movie. And I'm a strong believer that fundamental and the best light for human is daylight, and daylight is a source of everything on earth. The quality and variability of daylight play a huge role in shaping different cultures around the world. So this is setting the scene, what we're talking about, light. So therefore, light has a overwhelming power to influence how we perceive our physical surroundings, shaping our experience in our daily life. And as a lighting designer, I often refer light as the fourth dimension of architecture, as it creates the atmospheres and the ambiances connecting people to space emotively, and influence how we behave and experience our environment in a language that is made up of different characters of light. And you can probably see it through a range of our work. And so I'm just going to show a very quick show reel of our projects that we've used light to characterize a building structure, exteriors and interiors, which in turn creates the spatial narratives and experiences of people. And some of these you might be familiar with, but it is so important that light can be used to sort of create this context of what people can remember and take it away, and how lights with a dynamic lighting can also help to narrate a space, tell a story, and prompt people, guide people through a public realm space, and also provide the significance of some of the heritage building around in cities that people bring attention to, and suchly get the understanding how the past relate to the present and the future of our heritage. But importantly is how light also creates a placemaking, keeping the significance of product or buildings in people's mind. Understanding how light also can nudge people into certain behavior and how we can positively use light to guide those. So the light has also got huge amounts of social dimension to it, creating outdoor space for us, but also a space that we can work in and to heighten our productivity. So now we know that humans evolved under daylight through millions of years, and a more recent survey from the Future Workplace called the Employee Experience actually reveals the fact that employees crave for something much more fundamentally essential to human needs that is more than a fancy desk or a special nap room or some kind of indoor slides in an office. It is about the access of the right kind of light, the natural light, and also the views outdoor. And here's some of the stats, the survey that they've done in the absence of daylight or outdoor views and how the employee feel. And some of them actually admitted to feel actually more tired, more easily, and gloomy in the absence of natural light phase. And all these would impact the productivity of individuals, whether in terms of working efficiently, but more important nowadays, when we look about workplace, it is more than just filling a piece of paper or completing a document online. It is the human interaction, the kind of the co-creation, collaboration that creates something more and different. And those are kind of the business opportunity for individuals. I come originally from Hong Kong, and this is something I'm pretty familiar with and probably rather common as a scene in many Asian cities as well. But then urbanization is a global phenomenon. Doesn't matter how we think daylight is important. With the densification of cities like London even, access to daylight is becoming more challenging, which also impact on health besides heat island effect. Is actually how much light you can get to the space where people spend a lot of time in. And we have also seen many developers in the real estate around that there's tendency to build commercial buildings with deeper floor plates. So it's not only the city get denser, but also with a deeper floor space, there's even less likelihood that you can get the use of usable daylight into the middle of the office space where a lot of people will spend hours in. So what we have seen is in industry is the lighting industry need to develop a dynamic human-centric lighting solution that aims to support circadian rhythms to promote health and well-being, and this has been based on decades of scientific research studies and evidence found in neuroscience and chronobiology, linking how daylight work, why daylight is so important to people, what does it do, to can we have a solution so using the artificial lighting means. So I'm going to touch on briefly some of the scientific findings behind this. So with the discovery of the third non-visual receptors in our eye, we now know that light is important to the entrainment of natural circadian rhythms that regulate our biological clock. And this clock is called what in short we call it SCN, but in long is a suprachiasmatic nucleus in our brain to ensure our overall well-being. And what the SCN does is the diurnal cycle from day to night actually stimulates this SCN in our brain to pace set the circadian rhythm within our body to regulate the release of cortisol in the morning and the melatonin release at night to support our natural healing process and promote general health and well-being. And concluded among many of these scientific research studies also is about the exposure of the bright light delivered in the morning help to benefit by advancing our circadian performance and improve alertness, cognitive performance, mood, and energy, and so on. But we also know from some of these studies is the overexposure of a high intensity blue enriched light at inappropriate time, such as in the afternoons or late evenings more so, can also have a detrimental impacts on our sleep-wake cycle because it tend to suppress the release of melatonin. And when you don't sleep well, there's other disorder effects, could be like chronic fatigue or even cancer. It's been sort of concluded by some of the research studies for over 2 decades ago by George Brainard. So some of these are just suggest even low illuminance level, not just a high intensity, but low illuminance level emitted from our computer screens and mobile phones can have enough of the blue enriched light to adjust our circadian rhythm. And through this, as a lighting professional, we will need to understand that now when we design lighting, is not just a photopic sensitivity to the human eye that we need to take into account. We also need to pay attention to another set of eye spectral sensitivity, which is called circadian sensitivity. And now with people, as I said before, people now spend a lot of time indoor. A lot of studies have indicated more than towards the 90% of time indoor. There is a necessity to light a building well. And I don't know where you've come across this, but there's this building, the WELL building standard, and now we're in version 2, is a vehicle for buildings and organizations to deliver more thoughtful and intentional spaces that enhance human health and well-being. This document includes a range of strategies, and light is only one of the many, backed by scientific research that aims to enhance human health through design interventions, how we operate buildings, operate protocols, and some of the policies they implement in the building operations through these facilities. So there's a commitment to foster a culture of health and well-being, and it's becoming more important, people are aware of that. So some of the examples that I can show here is a few pictures of the Arup offices in a different part of the world. That's we have been using the WELL standard as a guidance through our design and thinking process, including and considering both daylight and circadian lighting, what's featured in the WELL, and as a sort of preconditions requirement to earn points on the WELL certification. What you see here on the right-hand side are our Cork building in Ireland, and also one at the bottom is our Boston offices. And the building on the left-hand side actually got the WELL Platinum certification, and that's an office in the Melbourne office. But in a lot of cases, you can see that we really sort of trying to aim to design daylight first, but understandingly having an office in the middle of the city, we do need to think about the circadian element and how the daylight and the circadian lighting solution balance it up to create a really nice environment for its occupants. But we also need to bear in mind that designing for health and well-being is more than just a compliance with WELL. What lighting designers need to understand is that the non-visual effects of light exposures are dependent on a number of factors if we really think about the non-visual effects of light. For example, the temporal patterns of light exposure is critical. The biological potency as a function of intensity and spectrum will also contribute to the circadian stimulus for us. So will this spatial configuration, the duration of exposing to light, the timing of exposure in relation to our light history, where we come from, what kind of sort of individuals for us as well in terms of our own body clock. Think about the lark and our scenarios of early risers and late sleepers. But of course, meeting the visual and physiological requirements, sometimes prescriptors are never at end all. We should be treating they should be treated as a good practice guidance. And designers also need to consider other broader issues and best practices in design with respect to the workspace, the workforce, and the work style. How we're doing, and these are all parts of our toolkits for good design. And here's some examples of, you think about space, it's not just about uniform lighting, it's how you create a contrast to sort of draw attention to certain places, how to draw people through a space, and it's this visual experience that people sort of remembers about the space, or even the brand of the organization you come into. The work styles is varying quite a lot now, and we need to consider spaces which will encourage people for focus work, good for concentration, individual working, but also spaces that can enhance and promote collaboration and co-creation, discussion, the visual communication. So light on the face is also very important to consider. Excitements about colors, all these need to be brought into account. But more fundamentally, with the advance of technologies, the ability that we can give people, the staff, the occupants, a more sort of individualized, personalized control is something to be considered, and start to sort of, I would say, considering spaces or how you do the lighting approach to space in layers of light, that use certain layers, say probably the ceiling lighting that could be more directly linked to daylight and the circadian side, and that could be another level of light that's how do you promote some concentration or the task work so that individual could have that sort of control, but also a variety of space as well, so people can actually decide where they want to move to. So in summary, light is fundamental to our social infrastructure, and there's more to applying the healthy lighting for well-being in our workspace. And a truly human-centric approach will need to consider how our space impact people and the environment and the ecology from day to night, and how we plan and design for cities, urban precincts, from macro to individual micro scales, like interiors where we live, work, and play. So that's the end of my presentation. And Sapna, over to you.
Thanks, Florence. That was really interesting. And, there were a lot of interesting points that you highlighted about lighting. It's not only about impact on human beings, but also impact how to set the context of a building, how to highlight a building, and how to highlight the purpose of a building. All these, one can achieve from lighting. So we also have Mr. Parag Bhatnagar now joining us here today. And we have some questions. Parag, you just saw this entire presentation. What is Havel's understanding on importance of well-being? Like, what Florence mentioned in her presentation just now in terms of work-life balance. What is your view on that?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Florence, for a wonderful presentation. I just start from her presentation. She spoke like sunlight is the best source of light. And I'll just share with you one research data in India, especially in the urban city. People spend only 1.5 hours in outdoor, and most of their time is spent actually indoor. And obviously, like you said, the biological cycle obviously is disrupted, and then it has kind of an impact which will lead to many lifestyle diseases like hypertension, depression, insomnia, and so many things which can be avoided by using human-centric light. Also, Sapna, as you know, that Havells brand promise is that better light, better life, and this is something which we are most passionate about. That we need to create product and solutions that can improve consumers' life positively. And human-centric light is something which do it in all means and ways, right? So there is an immediate connect. And our response to address these issues is basically we are investing heavily in the technology, especially R&D facilities we have created to support these technologies, and also we are also ensuring that we are educating customers about the benefit of lighting, and especially these technologies which are related to health and well-being. So, there's a lot need to be done here. The adaptation of technology, again, say that is still not the way it should have been. So there's a lot of hard work need to be done. But of course, there are many possibilities, and we can prevent. This is not the only reason, but we can prevent some of these lifestyle issues that are prevalent in the society as of now.
That's right. And Parag, that is why we need lighting designers like Florence Lam helping us out with these issues. Florence, like we earlier discussed, one very, in the present times, the question that comes is that the same place we are using, we are all working from home. Right now, we are doing the Zoom meeting. What kind of lighting should we use when we are living in that space? What kind of lighting we can use to enhance, while we are working, and especially like you mentioned about Hong Kong, where you have smaller spaces, So how at home, what would be your suggestion for people to optimize lighting for their, life convenience?
Yes. Thank you. That's a very good question and quite a hot topic as well, because while we have a role to play in sort of designing for more sort of commercial and communal workspaces, when it comes to homes, people suddenly a year ago, everybody's need to start working from home, and there's kind of no design gone in, but you just have to adapt and look at working. So what's the kind of advices that we tend to get is obviously at home, an individual probably have a bit more control in terms of how they want to expose to daylight or not. And then their work styles. I think most people will probably work with a computer, laptop, secondary or third monitors at home. Is the placement of these screens where you need to look at, if you think you might want windows in front of you. If you're not working, yes, they probably want a cup of tea or read a book like that. But when you're actually with the computer, you actually don't want your window to be right behind your screens, because there's a huge contrast when you sort of look at what you're supposed to focus on, look away, and then suddenly you've got sun coming in, blinds. So it is about controls. It is about the blinds controls of the daylight. So that is kind of the first cut of what's individuals given space and what you can deal with. And then some of my colleagues actually are in spaces that you probably have very small windows or even no windows, or windows just look out to another block wall. There's hardly any daylight coming through. So how can you, while you're sort of chained to your desk 8-9 hours a day, and some people don't really have that sort of flexibility of choice of when to walk outside to get a bit of dose of daylight and vitamin D, is looking at some of the technology light that can help them. I won't say sort of completely regulate, but it's really helping them to have the sense of dynamisms of the kind of bluer light, warmer light through the day. So these are options that people need to think about. That I would always start with: find a space that you've got daylight, but the daylight not becomes a nuisance, and that's very important, because that will hurt the eyes as well.
That's right. So these are some simple steps that Ms. Florence Lam here suggests. In terms of when you're working on computer, you have a screen in front of you, what to do, and control on the daylighting. How you can maximize it. Parag, similar questions to you. What is the Havells understanding on impact of present lighting offering? And demand from customers, both for well-being and again for their other purposes. So what's your observation?
See, Sapna, is a very important question about it. See, what is happening nowadays, people have some curiosity about what light can do, because they hear it either on digital world, or they understand it maybe in these kind of forums. But the hard fact is that only, if I look at how much is the penetration, that only 10% of lighting products are being sold, which are actually related to well-being. And as Havells, we want to focus on this technology, and we want to ensure almost like 60% of our sales should come by lighting products, which are contributing to the well-being, health and well-being of people.
And is this all across commercial and residential, or is it only this 10% penetration, or is it only residential using?
It is both. It is all put together.
Okay.
So that's a very, very low penetration as of now. Look at the benefits that the technology can deliver. So see, let me just take a step back and tell you how are we responding to this situation, right? So what we did as a responsible lighting company, we have invested heavily on R&D. We have created a center of excellence in Bangalore, and the purpose of that facility is basically to focus on software engineering, because it is going beyond lighting also. Florence, you must agree with me. So this is like software engineering. Then they also focus on IoT based product and emerging technologies. So they also do a lot of research on the global and local level in terms of understanding where the technology will be in future, and how can we. One more very important point is that most of these algorithms are made for European markets, and India is a very different country. So here, people spend time, more time in office sometimes. It's like, around 8 o'clock is a very normal time in some part of the country where this much time is spent indoor. So the need for Indian customer might be very different from the need what it is for the other countries, and it has to be localized as per the local need. It has to be built around consumers. So that is the role of Excellence Center, which is based in Bangalore. We have also created, have a design studio in Noida, and also a very large R&D facility in Noida. And these facilities basically focus like design center. Their focus is around design thinking, cognitive science, visual communication, and of course the industrial design, which is the basic thing which any design studio will do. And they make sure that the uses of this technology is affordable It is easy to install, maintenance will be easier, so that the adaptation will go further high. And also the Noida Development Center, which we have, is focusing basically on the electronic side of it, and then regulatory requirements, regulations, and of course, the quality side of it. So these are the things which we have done, made these investments. Other than that, we will also create various communication platforms. For example, today we are having this event where we'll be discussing lighting so that more and more people will come and will understand these benefits, and we share our wisdom because this is a very informed group. All audience, some of them understand lighting far more than what I understand. So it's a common learning ground, and then people have the capability and the willingness to also share it with other people so that the adaptation of technology happens. So our focus will be, Sapnam, largely to focus on making sure that the technology will be here and available for the customers. And of course, we will spend a lot of time and energy to make sure that people are educated about the benefit of human-centric lights.
That's right. So what Parag is saying is that their efforts are towards making technology simpler, user friendly, as well as awareness about these technologies, so that they can attract more people who should be using these technologies, and also taking in consideration the local needs. What was the big word here, Florence? What Parag mentioned, that the local needs differ from what could be in some other place. What is your approach when you go in a project? Obviously the needs of each place, each local area, city, region is different. So what is your approach?
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I've probably just touched on it very briefly earlier on, is understanding how people from different regions geographically would have experienced daylight very differently. So Frederick mentioned earlier about India, and the same as of Singapore, so those are countries that are near the equator, Middle East countries, to those that are really in the Northern Hemisphere, the Scandinavian, the variation of daylight, the quality of daylight is very different. So that is a sort of starting point, understanding what it is. And when we talk about human-centric circadian lighting, there has been a simplistic approach, I think I've seen from the industry, is simply changing the color of light from warm to cold and then go back to warm light in the evening without really think hard on what the context it is, what countries and culture it is. So as we always come from, think about daylight first. Daylight sort of almost inform what the context of the local climatic conditions are like. So what we have been really kind of promoting and doing some in-house pilot studies with some of these kind of technologies we can get ourselves hands-on, is find a way to synchronize the way how you adjust the indoor lighting against in sync with what's happening outdoor. So if you have a very sunny day, then the color temperature will be quite different from a daylight outdoor. And then indoor, we actually synchronized it in the same way of how it varies throughout the day. And in a sort of overcast day, bad weather is quite dull throughout the day, and how that's play itself out. So it's varied by day, but also the actual scenery, the scene setting, the change is actually in real time in sync with the local climate. So that is kind of how we tailored it. And of course, other things is this contrast and variation, the visual experience, the interest need to, so that's where the other part of design elements come in. This is very important on how we deal with the color changing of the light, is because even with the bulk, the amount of scientific research is done, there's still a number of elements that is inconclusive yet. And I'm very adamant that lighting designers are not medical doctors or chronobiologists. So we need to set ourselves a limit of what we know, what we design to, and what we declare. And so, but this thinking of daylight is, it is there, it's out there. And the do no harm is trying to work with what the local contexts are like, the climate conditions are like, and provide that sort of dynamism of indoor lighting for people. And it is really actually beyond just a simple color temperature as well, because I touched on about spectrum, the importance of spectrum and matching the kind of the perfect light spectrum of that. So we still need looking for a lot of advancement from the manufacturers, technology sectors to help us to achieve this kind of ideal situations.
Completely. Manufacturers, designers, and other stakeholders, they all go hand in hand to
Yes.
provide complete solutions. And like you
Absolutely.
rightly mentioned, how people perceive of a local region, the light, and second is the context of the climate of that region, probably at the basis of how the lighting designers, work on the lighting design. You mentioned about color temperature, and one of the questions that we have here from the audience is they want to understand what is CCT and how does this impact us.
Well, correlated color temperature, one can Google that, but it is really related that if you have a light that, so you start with the perfect light, where it's incandescent, the black body light source, and opposed to daylight. So daylight, that's the color temperature is we call it a very cold light, so 6500 K, but it's a perfect light in a way in terms of the color rendering of it. And then, but then you can have some really artificial light creating that 6500 K, but with a very poor color rendering, because they could have a light sources that really tackle sort of peak in a certain area, particularly red, green, blue, and those peaks by in the old days, fluorescent triphosphorus, they use the 3 peaks to give you the color temperature. So by calculation, you get that, but it doesn't mean that you've got good color rendering. And same as candlelight or incandescent light source. I would say those are very much of a perfect light in terms of a rendition of a color, but those tend to be the more warmer end, 2700, even 2300 K, much warmer. So there's quite a range that we talk about color temperature, but what we experience in nature, it is that range from the really sort of daylight, cool light, 6500 K type of light, and even higher. There's a time, so I actually tried out, you've got a sunny day. If you measure the color temperature of the daylight in shadow, so that means you really mask out the sun element, but just have the blue sky element, it is well over 15,000 K. 17,000 K or even more. But when you have sun coming in, that's where the warmth add in, and that's when the temperature lower to what we tend to call the 5,000 K, 6,500 K as the range. And then the fire, where we sort of move to the natural type of light sources, candles, that side, it is the warmer range. Moonlight is in the cold range as well. So the nature informs us what kind of lighting condition it's good for human, how we used to it, and how we can apply those kind of information in a way how we design spaces indoor with the technology.
Okay, so great. So artificial lighting takes from the natural lighting, it takes its inspiration of now. So first of all, what are the reasons for this low penetration, among the consumers on?
We lost your voice in between. If you don't mind, can you just repeat a moment? I think she is. There's some. She will be back most likely. There's some connectivity issue.
I experienced the same thing earlier, so I didn't quite catch what Sapna's question was.
Just in between, Florence, a very important point you raised while answering the earlier question, that there is also has to be a limit, how much you claim. So that's why, there is a lot of focus from our side also to spend time spent on the research as well before, you have to be 100% sure that what is the right advice. And there is a limitation up to which the lighting can definitely help. It can't cure, obviously. But it can prevent definitely. If you have that, it can contribute in terms of preventing these situations in some of the cases, not in all the cases.
Yes.
So that's a very, very good point.
So sorry for that technological glitch. We are still, grappling with technology in these times of Zoom. But my question was, I was, trying to put to you was that you mentioned about low penetration among consumers, especially for, lights that is for human wellness. One, what is the reason for that, and what are the offerings that Havells is providing in this segment?
See, I tell you, it is all about awareness. I mean, this is once you understand, if you see the way like Florence today presented, if you see that the impact of lighting on your personal life, on the well-being, then obviously you know what need to be done, right? So that penetration will obviously go high. I share my personal experience. We in Havells, we are very like consumer oriented. So a lot of we do consumer home visits. So we have met many customers trying to find out what can make their life better, understand their lighting requirement. And I realize in India, the uses of light is so much in most of the places. It is a very high intensity of light people use, especially in the night. So in the morning it is fine, but in the night, for instance, if you use, let's say, 3 times, 4 times than the required lux level, then obviously it's going to affect you in some other manner. So what we realize that, we need to create some kind of a communication with our consumers, and need to make them aware that how this technology can help them getting best out of the lighting. So what we did, we have created an online platform where consumers can reach out to us, and we have a very competent team of lighting engineers, and they can speak to them. They can share their electrical drawing online. There is no physical meeting required. And the lighting designers will help them online by providing the right kind of lighting solutions for their homes. And actually, home environment is a huge market. There's almost 60-70% of the population is actually living in homes. So in the sense, I mean, other people are spending more time in offices, but very large population, like in India kind of environment where women, very less number of women work. So very large number of population remains at home, and they're also spending time indoor there as well. So that way, I think this kind of a lighting design support helped us, in thousands of homes we could support by providing this kind of a and our experience with them, Sapna, the moment they understand the technology, most of them, it is almost like 100% people adopt technology immediately. So in my mind, I think we need to have more spotlight. We need to have more such digital platform, and we have Florence kind of people who are coming here, who agreed to come here and share their views, their wisdom with others, so that the technology adoption will become faster going forward. Yeah. That is the only way I will say.
Rightly said, it's just a matter of understanding. Yeah.
Can I ask a question to Pradra, as also as the awareness of health and well-being, and how it is important for the Indian populations, is where the question is go even one step further, particularly when you sort of thinking about domestic, the individual homes, etc. That's creating or having an app that actually understanding what individual exposure to different range of light, for what they do during the day, and give them a bit of advice and feedback that's where they are in terms of circadian stimulus, perhaps, and what they should give themselves a bit more or less in the evening, so that people can be more informative. So lighting education is great. So if they're ready and very much used to technology, is where the one you could sort of think about them going further of actually informing them where they are on a daily basis and what they should do or have more dosage of this or that.
Yeah, yes. So right. First, let me also just clarify this one more point here, that this platform is not a commercial platform. It is basically free of cost. And actually the purpose of this is exactly what you're saying, that we need to popularize the technology. We don't sell anything there. It is about telling how light influences their day, how it influences health and well-being of people, and why a certain lux level is required to perform a certain task, and how it is going to disturb or better your sleep, how it is going to how and why and how much. Like I really appreciate when you said that there should be a limit, and You should not overclaim. That thing also we take care that we tell them that this is what is possible. So most likely, because this is how the circadian rhythm works, and this is the inspiration is sun, and we are trying to be closer to that and trying to follow that cycle. So and I think people appreciate that. So that is the objective of these kind of initiatives and it has been quite successful so far.
That's great. So it's all about matter of understanding, and as you rightly said, once they understand, they definitely go for using those kind of technologies. And what best way to encourage people to use the right lighting is when to tell them profitability. And that is what our next question is, Florence, for you, is that how human-centric lighting can help in raising the bottom lines of the company or profitability. Is there a connection there?
Well, certainly there is a connection there, but I cannot sort of pinpoint exactly which research piece of work has done on that. But sort of very quickly, I always want to refer to daylight. Just if you sort of look at daylight, what the kind of study that we had done or come across is one that was done in New York, in Americas. They looked at a number of real estate in Manhattan area. I think there are almost 5,000 plus spaces that they looked at, and spaces that have got good daylight access and places that don't. So those with good daylight access, they can attract 5 to 6% premium in terms of the lettable values of those spaces, and because they somehow sort of link to that already. So that's the values of daylight. But when you don't have daylight, which makes up to 75% of the property in Lower Manhattan actually don't have access to daylight, then you look at the next level of productivity. Earlier in my presentation, I actually show some of these employee satisfactions, the alertness, the sickness, etc. If you really look at probably I'm not the real estate expert, but what I've been told is when you look at the actual capital of investment they put into a space, fitting out lighting and other things into the space, that only constitute values of what the business had as the bottom line. So 10% of the hardware capital cost, but the people, the staff costs constitute 90%. So the people, it's very valuable to any businesses. And you think about the productivity drop because people being sick or not concentrating, the percentage of minus time or the negative time is you can turn it, what is the business revenue it constitutes. So those figures I've been seen before, but I can't put my hands to the exact numbers. Is like the 10% is the capital investment, 90% of people's cost, and then depends on the kind of business, you add overhead to it. The actual productivity people, what the people can actually bring to the business to be 3 to 10 times. So any drops of that is a huge big factor compared with what you invest as the basic equipment go into making the workplace work. So really sort of think hard of how important it is to improve the well-being of their staff, in being good for business, but also staff retention as well. Bringing the right talents, dwarf talents. So all these things our business need to think about. And it's not just it's like a conveyor belt type of productivity, it's getting the right staff, the staff that do the right things, and also energizing the other staffs within the space as well.
Fantastic. Retention of talent, productivity, 3 to 10% increase in productivity, which will directly, raise your profitability. And if you have good lighting design for your space, then it also raises the capital value of the real estate as well. So it's all in all good news for everyone there. Talking about challenges now, we have understood that there are a lot of benefits of having a human-centric lighting, but what are the obstacles? Like, we mentioned earlier in this discussion that the penetration is low, awareness we are creating. So Florence, what according to you are the common obstacles in, implementing these human-centric lighting? And then Parag will take your view as well.
Well, it's always cost, because even for our clients, we know it's important. And actually, when I roll back 10 years or so ago, when we have to sort of put forward a scheme to our client, developers, etc., we talk about LEDs, how good it is, why we need to do it, energy saving, and so on. It's always come with, you need to prepare a study, a report to demonstrate payback, etc. But come to a point when their own kind of letting agents or real estate agents that actually, if you don't put in LED lighting, not ticking the box, then you're not designing a space for the 21st century. So no more demonstration, you just need to do it. And same as health and well-being, lighting to do with well-being. I think the awareness and education about how lighting linked to well-being need to be well understood. The well-building standard, even though it can be quite prescriptive in one sense, it really helped to raise the awareness why health and well-being is so important when we're designing buildings. When a developer offers a building to the market, the last thing they want is a building to be branded unwell, right? This is the opposite. Being unwell building, how are you going to light up the space for that? So this is kind of the switch in the perception, the importance of well-being. I mean, now we can say we try to put a number to the staff productivity. What does it mean in terms of bottom line? But come to a point, is that awareness a point of when you can't afford to have a building that put out there saying it is unwell, then it's almost a no-brainer. You need to put in the right kind of lighting, create the right kind of lighting environments to encourage people to work happily and well within those spaces.
Okay. So Florence, Florence mentioned that cost and probably the understanding of the relation between, what it can do for you. What your observation, what your views on this? What stops people from using these lighting?
Swapna, I will not say that anything is stopping people. It's a journey, I would say. And I agree to Florence when she said that it is about cost. Of course, it matters, and that's an important part of it. Also, communicating a long-term value proposition where, health and well-being is not urgent sometimes. It is like, it looks like the impact of this will come over a period of time, whether the employee productivity is there. At least now, thankfully, there is some research data, authentic data available where you can talk something in like percentages. I'm sure when she mentioned 3 to 8%, I mean, obviously, excuse me for this. This 3 to 8%, you may be, this kind of information is now available. So this, with some kind of a facts, you can put it on the table that how you are going to get the benefit out of it. But what we are doing here is that our entire upstream marketing team is also working very hard to make sure that we deliver solution at a lower price. When the scale up will happen, it's always, like I said, it's a journey. Over a period of time, the cost will also probably will come down. By then, what we are trying to do is that rather getting into entire building, maybe our lighting designers are suggesting some places where frequency of visits are higher, or the impact of human-centric light is more, at least convert those places as a reference point in offices and all workspace, public spaces, and especially at homes to these kind of technology, and have the more and more people will experience, the chances of adaptation will be much higher. So there is work going on both sides. Like one is, of course, the upstream marketing is working very hard to make sure that there will be solutions which are more affordable. So affordability, we need to work very hard. And of course, also give them a taste in terms of where they can use technology with some kind of a lesser cost, even in the current scenario, by using the data which is already available, like 3 to 8% is one example. There's some more data like that which is available, which we can talk with some certainty, and that can be shared with the people to convince them. So I'm sure this has a huge value, and this is definitely going to take off. I'm very confident that 60% of well-being product of lighting will not be a very distinct thing.
Okay, fantastic. That's a very positive sentiment. And in fact, we are seeing in a lot of ITES buildings, we are seeing that they are using lighting which are much better equipped for working of people who are working at night and working at odd hours. So they at least in commercial segment, we are looking the steps taken towards well-being and human-centric lighting. And as Parag mentioned, yes, it is a journey, and we are all taking small steps in this journey, and this spotlight series is one step in that direction. So thanks, Ms. Florence and Mr. Bhatnagar, for sharing your views, answering our audience questions, and I'm sure our viewers had some very valuable takeaways from today's discussion. Special thanks to Havells India, for presenting this knowledge sharing session for the benefit of our entire Indian design fraternity, and for people who had, a lot of questions. And I'm sure it is the right step in the direction of creating awareness. As Florence also mentioned, it's all about understanding, it's all about awareness, it's all about knowing what lighting is all about and how it can benefit us. So thank you very much. Thank you to our awesome audience as well for being here and sharing their time and sending in their queries. So keep watching this space as we bring to you very soon yet another acclaimed design expert to share with us more about the magical world of lighting. But for now, Ms. Florence Lam, thank you so much for being here, sharing your time and sharing your expert views, and Parag for sharing your knowledge and your, what you are doing in this direction. Thank you so much, and for presenting this series. Thank you so much. And viewers, before you take a leave, do take a look at this Realty Plus AV. And thank you so much. Have a great evening. Goodbye. Take care.
Bye.